us. It was the 23rd Psalm, but the Lord was our shepherd, and we did not want. We may have said it wrong, but what we said was right. We said, I have did, but we had did something. To be quite frank with you, a few of us old codgers have a hard time getting excited about some of the new temples you guys are building. We've seen the old temples. You know, when you've seen Lester Roloff, it's hard to get excited about a John MacArthur. When you've seen an Oliver B. Green, it's hard to get excited about a Chuck Swindoll. In fact, if you've seen Bubba Jones, it's hard to get excited about a Swindoll. In fact, if you ain't seen nobody, it's hard to get excited about a Swindoll. Once you've seen a Bob Jones Sr., it's hard to get adjusted to a Bob Schuler. And once you've seen a John R. Rice, it's hard to get adjusted to a C.S. Lewis. And once you've seen old-fashioned Holy Ghost revival, it's hard to get adjusted to religious emphases weeks. And once you've seen the old-time religion, it's hard to get adjusted to lectures and seminars. You see, there's some of us old people, and by the way, put up with us. We'll be off the scene after a while. It's just a few years. We'll be gone. So be patient with us and be kind to us. And we have gravy on our ties, and we slobber when we talk. But we'll be off the scene after a while. And so put up with us. But we're just having a hard time adjusting to this new fundamentalism. But it's not new fundamentalism. If it's not old, it's not fundamentalism at all. But we're having a hard time adjusting to magazines come out being called a fundamentalist that run with the neo-evangelical crowd. That bothers us a great deal. So you put up with us. We'll pass off the scene after a while. You won't have to hear us throw our fits about 3 times a year in meetings like this. And just put up with us. But some of us have an awful hard time getting adjusted to the newfangled when we've seen the old-fashioned. A year ago last month, I was preaching down south. And I made this statement. I said, you know, Pentecost was not a one-time thing. Anybody that wants to have Pentecost could have it if you'd meet the conditions they met back in those days. And I said a church could have 3,000 people saved today if they'd pay the price in prayer and soul winning. And see, I've not taken the Bible and chopped it up dispensationally to prove that this is the dispensation of God being tired and worn out. And I made that statement. I said, it could happen again if a church would pay the price. Well, I was flying back home Wednesday morning, and the Lord spoke to me on the airplane. He did not speak to me audibly. He never has spoken to me audibly. He's never spoken to Oral Roberts audibly either, by the way. But he spoke to me, and he said, that thing you said last night, I knew what he was talking about because I remember when I said it. I was sorry I said it. I said, what are you talking about? Then he said, that 3,000 people saved on one Sunday. You said that could happen again. Did you mean that? I said, yeah. I went to my church that night and shocked myself to death. I walked up and I said, ladies and gentlemen, on March 18 of this year, we're going to have 3,000 people walk the aisle in First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, and have another Pentecost Sunday. When I got home that night from church, and my wife was at the door. She's never at the door when I come in. She's always in the kitchen. That's where we do business when I come in at night. But my wife was at the door. Now, my wife never gets excited. She's got tired blood and low blood pressure and low iron and anemia. And she's the calmest thing you ever saw in your life. When she says hello, the operator says, your 3 minutes is up, please deposit some more money. And she was waiting for me. And I walked in and she said, do you know what you said tonight? And I said, what do you mean? As if I didn't know. She said, you made a fool out of yourself tonight. And I said, you better know I made a fool out of myself. She said, you said on March 18th, we're going to have 3,000 people saved that one Sunday. I said, I know it. My neck's out. We're going to have to pray. If we don't want to or not, we're going to have to. I never saw a church of people pray like our people prayed. I never saw a church of people work like our people worked. I'm here to say tonight, I don't believe there's anything the New Testament church had that we can't have in 1991. And we worked and prayed, and March 18th came, as all March 18ths do. And that morning, some of you were there. Many of you were there that morning. And an invitation was given. It took 21 men 2 hours to baptize all the converts that one morning. I mean, 4 men were in our baptistry. We were in a swimming pool. Folks would walk down the aisle to get saved. We'd ship them out to a bus and bus them down to a swimming pool and baptize them. 17 men in a swimming pool and 4 men in our baptistry. And that night we walked to church and our folks were sitting there. I wonder if we made the 3,000. I wonder. And I told my record secretary, don't tell me. Just give me a little card folded one time like that. And I'll take it out, and I'll find out the same time the people do. I walked out trembling that night, and folks are waiting for me to get up and say something. And I said, folks, here it is. And I opened it, and to my surprise, it said 5,190 people walked the aisle. I'm talking about that many folks walked the aisle. Every single one of them was dealt with an open Bible on their knees. We didn't say have a card. We said have a knee. And on their knees, 5,190. I want to tell you something, brother. Oliver B. Green religion is not passed off the scene. And Lester Roloff Christianity is not passed off the scene. And what was right in 1950 is right in 1991. And what was wrong in 1950 is wrong in 1991. And what would work in 1950 will work in 1991. Be patient with us. I'll be through in a few minutes, and we'll all, us old codgers, we'll be in heaven after a while. And you young fellows can go ahead and completely ruin what's going on in America. You've got a good start already. You see, when we see Christian celebrities interviewed by Playboy magazine, remember the days when Christians wouldn't even read a magazine that had a girl in shorts in it. Remember the old John Rice revival campaigns down in Texas. He was in Waxahachie, Texas, preaching. And he couldn't get any crowds. And so all of a sudden he figured how to get a crowd. He announced that the next night he was going to Lover's Lane. And he was going to take the license number of every car in Lover's Lane and read the license plate number of every car that was in Lover's Lane in the service the next night. He got up there, went out Lover's Lane, checked the license plate of every car. And you see, we remember those old leather-lung, hell-raising, barnstorming, winter-rattling, shingle-pulling, hell-fire and damnation preachers. And compared, you look cute exegeters, they sure look mighty good to us old codgers. You see, when we see Baptist preachers having an audience with the Pope, we cannot help but remember the days when Baptist preachers got up and said the Pope is the vicar of hell. When we see long-haired hippies masquerading as dedicated Christians, we can't help but remember when men were men and glad they were men and proud they were men. When we see so-called fundamental preachers sitting on platforms with Mormons, Catholics, Carmelites, and Moonies, we recall the days when Mormons were cultists, the Catholics were the mother of harlots, and the Pope was the false prophet of Revelation. Remember those days. I got a call a few years ago from the Moonies, and they were having a common suffrage rally in Washington, D.C. Would you speak on the program for the common suffrage rally? He said, we're all suffering persecution from the government. Would you speak? I said, no, I won't. I won't even be there. And he said, why? I said, you suffer alone, and I'll suffer alone, thank you. But there's no need to disobey the direct command of God to be yoked up with unbelievers and not be yoked up with unbelievers. And I mean, there was a day when fundamental preachers wouldn't have gone to the ministerial association. They wouldn't have gone. They'd have called the Moonies heretics and cultists. And it's a little hard for us who saw the old temple of the old-time religion, old-time fundamentalism. It's a little tough for us old codgers to get used to the modern things that are masquerading under the name of fundamentalism. We see females exposing their thighs. We cannot help but remember the days when ladies were ladies and proud of it. We see fundamental churches promoting mixed swimming and can't forget the days when you couldn't find a fundamentalist that believed in mixed bathing. Oh, you say, Brother Hyles, what's wrong with mixed bathing? Now, you ladies may not know what's wrong with mixed bathing. But if you fellows don't, you need to move to San Francisco. It's a little hard for us to get used to this mixed bathing crowd. Well, you say, I don't like your preaching. I don't not particularly fond of your living either. But you put up with me for a little while longer. I'll go to heaven, and I'm going to send a heap of angels down to bother you, but I'll be in heaven. But, brother, while I'm here, it's just awful hard for those of us who saw the old protracted meetings and the old campgrounds and the old camp meetings and the old brush arbors and the old tent campaigns, it's hard for us to get used to this modern kind of Christianity that mollycoddles almost everything and embraces almost everything religious. You see, we remember when we see churches having cantatas and drama in the place of preaching. We remember the days when preachers liked to preach. You couldn't have fought them off with a stick off from their pulpit.